Co-Creation Loft Stories. Here we are with Yulia Gajewski, and we're just going to talk a little bit about life, basically. And so, how's things?
Good.
Good.
Very good. The energy was off this morning, so I thought, okay, what else can we do? So finally we get to do this thing, which I look forward to.
Yes, beautiful. Yeah, it's always good fun. It's always good to get to know people. And so, first question, which is, I think, a good one, I hope, is that, let's start with going back to you growing up as a kid and stuff like that, here in Berlin. What are some of the smells and sights of your childhood home or the area? What are some of the things you can remember?
I guess since it's a city, it's Berlin. One of the smells that comes to mind easily is the smell of summer dog poop smell, which is the worst that you can imagine. It's like, especially when you're sitting somewhere and it's like so nice and sunny out, and then it's like this heated up poop smell. That's beautiful. But I guess also one of the smells that I really love is roses. And we were fortunate to have a downstairs apartment, like what's it called? Not basement, but the ground floor apartment with a little garden in front of it in Kreuzberg, which is not so often to be found. And we had roses in the garden and lavender. And since I love flowers and plants generally, I always go after them.
Amazing. And
then obviously, I guess cars. That's a big thing in the city. I hope it's going to be different very soon.
And we'll also get to that as well with a bit of your work with Guerrilla Foundation. Guerrilla Foundation. And so you have fond memories of playing out there with brothers or sisters that you had?
Yeah, I have a little brother. He's a bit younger than me, 7 years younger almost. And so we weren't playing so much as I was like trying to teach him things. But that was fun, and I dearly love him. So I was rather a child that was sticking, I don't know, to my books most of the time. I was reading lots and lots, and I didn't really explore the city as my friend, for example, my neighbor was a good friend and also went to the same school, and she was like all adventure and going out, do fun things and also forbidden things. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Stealing things, really? But still, yeah, it was. And also I went a lot to Bodensee, which is in the south of Germany. And vacation times, my parents went there a lot. We had friends there, sort of extended family as well. And so I had really good friends there, two sisters that were older than me, and I could look up to them, and they were really cool. So there are lots of fun memories.
And I can see here talking about your grandma. And so your grandma must have been quite an influence at this stage.
Yeah. I guess it got to this even later when I grew up a little bit more, and I was maybe 20 or so. Then our relationship got really close. When she was a little bit older, then she must have been, I don't know, around the end of her 70s or something. She also started to need some help and assistance with being washed and, taking a shower and everything. So I did that with her and for a while, and that was really making us much closer. Or bringing us much closer. And that also was a time when I realized that she had a certain wisdom in her that I've not seen before. And that's probably something that just very old people get to have. That was like a really like an out-zoomed vision of what's happening in the world, and not really paying attention to the petty things that keep us, I don't know, annoyed all the time. And we're like, oh, this is so important. And we stick to these like tiny things that they're just, they don't care or they don't matter in the long run or in the broader perspective. And she saw that, and she made me aware that there's different ways of seeing at things and looking at things. And also, don't worry too much, in a sense. So that was something that I really appreciated, that things will fall into place in some sort of way. And they did, some of them that she talked about. So I try to remember that broad perspective to take that on as often as I can.
Amazing. And this may have been, or was this a change from maybe being a bit younger as a kid? Maybe were you a bit more serious as a child, or a little bit more weltschmerzig? I don't know if that's a word, that you were very aware of your surroundings and the environment, and then this interaction with your grandmother gave you a kind of a bit more of a kind of peace, a bit of wisdom. Would you say that?
Yeah, I was I guess very empathetic always, or feeling with people. So that made me worry as well for people, or for things, or about things that I couldn't change. And yeah, so that's exactly the thing, to just step out of your little world or the problems that you see around you, and then see what can you actually do when you step back a little bit.
Great. I'm just going to quickly check that this is recording. Yes? I'm not quite in the picture, but that's okay.
Oh no. Shall we start?
No, God, no. No, it's very, there we go, that's fine. Hello and welcome back. I'm now in the picture. As far as I know. Very good. So, yeah. And so moving on into your maybe your teenage years and stuff like this, this ability to feel into the world and know about the world. Did this bring you to any realizations or any situations that might have been a little bit tough? Was there some things that you had to learn and go through to?
Of course. I mean, I had a lot of things that, not a lot of things. I was pretty fortunate with having like really nice and loving parents, and family that's sort of normal, and surroundings that were peaceful and everything. So I can't say that it has been super complicated. It was rather internally complicated, I guess, especially being a teenager. That's usually happen, that you're like doubting everything, and you're self-conscious and awkward. And one realization that I had when I was at that age was, I was looking back at my childhood, where I promised myself to always take myself seriously, in a sense. I don't know where that came from, but there was a time where I was like, oh no, it was different. So it was when I was a teenager and I had all these troubles, and I was like, I feel so shitty, and the world's going down and everything is shit. And even though everything was rather okay on the, like, from looking from outside, in the inside it was really turmoil, and yeah, lots of things were not okay. And I promised myself then that I would never look at it in a, how do you say that? I don't know, from and like a more experienced perspective, and disregard that pain. or pretend that it wasn't valid because it was just teenage coming of age pain or something like that. So I was promising myself, like, this is real. I know that it's sort of puberty shit going on. I can't tell that I'm going through a phase, but you will always take your fucking self seriously. Even if it's something that may look funny from later on. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I tried to stick with that and to keep that realization alive that everything has its place and its validation, or can you say that? It's valid in a sense, even if it might look ridiculous from the outside.
And whereabouts were you when you were having this realization? Were you living on your own, or you were living with your parents?
I was still living
in your room with posters all over it, and
exactly.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Writing a diary.
So I was like, I was like 14 maybe or so, in the midst of puberty, and like, I'm in love with this boy, or I'm in love with that boy. But now, see, I'm making fun of myself now. That's exactly what I tried to prevent myself of while telling me that. So yeah, it had its time, and it needed to be, and it was good, or bad, but good, needed.
And so, what were some of the posters on the wall there? Were we, what was our kind of musical interests? Our
oh my God!
Yeah, here we go.
Okay, the poster time was really bad. So first it was horse pictures. Okay, still okay in my opinion. And then it was a little bit Take That, but that needed to be because it was the cool thing. I didn't even listen to them really. And then Kelly Family.
Ooh.
So that's really, really embarrassing.
Yes.
And then the poster phase, luckily vanished quite fast. So I didn't have posters up for long. It was only maybe 1-2 years, maybe.
Okay. I seem to remember in Germany, some maybe young girls have a favorite out of members of the Kelly family.
Of course.
Who was your favorite?
Angelo Kelly, I guess.
Okay.
The young one.
Yeah. For listeners at home who aren't from Germany, have a look at the Kelly family.
Oh no! Please don't! Please don't! It's
Beautiful.
So terrible.
Beautiful. But then, so these led us into perhaps our earlier career. As far as I'm aware, I'm kind of flying from our memory of our semi-discussions about our lives. Is this interest with the music industry something that led you into a career later or earlier?
Actually, I mean, that luckily didn't have anything to do with the Kelly family, because then it would have been probably another way. The love of music was always there, and grew stronger when I was making friends that were musicians. And so one of my close friends then, she was a neighbor, and then I met her when I was a kid. I was maybe 12. And she was like the older, cool, still young woman. That she was 20, I think, at the time, living in the house where I was living with my parents. And so I could hang out with her, having a tea and talk about life and things, and like all these like puberty things. And she was for some reason interested in it. Maybe she was like, oh, that's so cute. Look at her, how she's struggling. No, I mean, we really, first we were like older sister, younger sister, and then it sort of moved into or merged into like a real friendship. And she's a jazz singer, and she then at a certain point, I don't know, a couple of years later, she had a baby, and I went on tour with her, and I was a babysitter on tour. And that was the start of just being on tour with bands, which then led me to be in the music industry in a broad sense. First first doing really like babysitting on tour. That was my signature thing, I guess. And then I went with a pretty large band here in Germany, Wir sind Helden, also as a babysitter on tour, which is, I guess, the best job that you can have as a student job. I was studying at the time, and so I was earning some money at the side, and it was amazing. Just, I don't know, pop star life, and at the same time being around really sweet kids and like really great influential parents of them. They were also really important for me in my life. These, like the friend that I was mentioning first, Lisa Bassange, and then Judith Holofernes is also one of the people that I would say are, really influential for me, because she's a Buddhist and like a super smart, reflective, warm person.
Good. And so, do you remember any moments with these people where there was any where something clicked for you, where something just sat into place in conversations with them, or?
Oh, many of these moments. With Judith, we were really close because she had like this little tiny baby, and I was taking care of it, and later it was two of them, and we were hanging out in the, most private moments where she was breastfeeding the kid, or maybe she was sick or the kid was sick or something, and then we were like in this hotel room together and basically living as a family and also having these deep conversations and share great music at night. So then it was a really fulfilling time because it entailed so many things that I love. Family or being with good people, which for me equals with family feeling. Family doesn't have to be bloodline or blood family or something. It's really also the family that you choose that's really important to me, the friends family. And then also hanging out with kids and like realizing all the time that life is more than something that you make up in your mind. It's just experiencing things and living the life, I guess. I don't know. That's hanging out with kids. That's what it's doing to me. And I don't know, really relaxed time. And then when they played concerts at night, I was sometimes able to go out and I had my like baby phone with me and I could just then do both, basically babysitting and also listen to concerts. And after that, we hung out in the tour bus, and it was like a party situation, sort of. Everyone was like hyped up, right, coming from stage, and then we would play each other songs, YouTube, whatever, and everyone, all of them being musicians or technicians that are closely related with music. All of them had like great taste of music and brought into the mix something that they just discovered or something. So it was like a sort of a party, nice little party, family party or whatever.
Amazing.
So it was really cool.
This amazing mix of usually a situation that might have drugs or something like in like a hotel room or something with a feeling cool with a cool person. Instead, it had this beautiful familial time with breastfeeding, and but it was just wholly wholesome. It's wow.
It was it was a rock and roll situation without so much of the roll, I guess. I don't know, like even though it was. We did drink alcohol or whatever, but it wasn't going crazy like you'd say. Yeah, sure. Anyway, I'm really happy that it didn't, because then also later on I was tour managing, and so I was with bands, basically the grown-up babysitter.
Yeah.
And if you are that can mess with you quite easily, especially when you're with like totally destructive, maybe genius type people, but still, I don't know, doing the rock and roll thing like crazy, or you always, like I had colleagues that told me they had to go to pick up their artists in the hotel room at like 6 p.m. and they were still asleep, or like almost overdosed with shit. And so I was like, no, this is not what I'm gonna do. And so I was lucky enough to choose bands, or they choose me, or mutual choosing, I don't know, choosing that weren't so destructive. So I was more with nice indie bands here in Germany, most of the time Germany or German-speaking countries. So, for me, I never needed this career thing where I'm like going on tour with the Rolling Stones or whoever, large bands internationally. This whole stress factor never attracted me.
Okay. I'll just check this one more time just to double check. Great, we're still recording. Great. Jump cut. And so how did these maybe this interaction and this time that started off with this kind of wholesome younger you, and then it evolved later into a babysitting adults and their tendencies. Do you feel that this has an influence now with your work in the Guerrilla
whatever
Foundation
works?
Do you feel like that is there a relationship between those times and this time now? And maybe a little bit first to what the Guerrilla Foundation is about.
Mm-hmm. So the Guerrilla Foundation that I started to work with last year is a grant-giving organization, a foundation that gives out money to movements, grassroots organizations that do activism. So that's like in a very short version of it. What we do, we also support our grantees with network and expertise if we have it, or like storytelling, insights, something that we can offer. And we try to be in the whole field of grant giving organizations. We try to be one that is actually not out there a lot. We try to support edgy groups that are political outspokenly, that do non-violent civil disobedience, but still being on a rather radical path and trying to solve some of the issues that we have in the society and in the world. So the broad, maybe overarching title that you can give all these projects, or that all of them would subscribe to, is a system change theory behind whatever they do. So so that's what we do with the Guerrilla Foundation. And I guess, I don't know if I would draw like a very direct line to where I was coming from and then where I am right now. Because also I was studying philosophy in the meantime, and it was very different from each of these things. But at the same time, it's sort of, maybe that's a connecting thing a little bit, because I was very interested in political philosophy and ethics and stuff like that. So rather angewandte Philosophie, what is that? Practical, maybe, philosophy, rather than theoretical. And so what I was researching on in my master thesis then was about public spaces, or the public space, basically, the notion of public space. This is while you were working kind of as that tour managing babysitting. Exactly.
So there was in that phase you were studying this philosophy and this practical philosophy alongside.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that was something that I was always interested. I was always very, not very political, but I was always political in the sense that I was thinking politically. I wasn't really an activist of that sort, but I was always thinking, okay, in what way can I can I contribute to a more just society? That was always like sort of a question that I had in the back of my mind, even though, yeah, because that is maybe the career choice that led me, because career was always something that felt strange to me, especially something like that you plan and then it works, or you know, this was something that I was like, I don't know if that's the way things are working or should be working. That was never really attractive to me, at least, to a money career or something. So it always had to be like with I don't know, like a bigger goal or larger purpose or something. And so when I was working in the music industry, that wasn't really the main driver. That wasn't really the main driver. It was more like, okay, that's a cool job that I can have easily because I know all these people. I do it well. I'm like a people's person. So why not do it as a side job, as basically, right? Then it turned out though that I was able to, for example, do a project that I could also curate with the Goethe Institute, the Cultural Institute, the German Cultural Institute, together with the festival, a collaboration where we invited musicians from the Global South here for a short summer program, and I was curating the whole thing and then organizing it and everything. And that started for me to be something, okay, this is something that I could myself imagine going to, because just plain pop music industry purpose is not to be found there so easily. I mean, obviously music is good for people, right? That was always my, but it's still cool to do that because it's good. People need music, and I still believe that. But it wasn't enough for me, in a sense. And then I was looking for something that was more going into the direction of like purpose, or however you want to call it. Okay. And then I started to work with the Earthbeat Foundation first, which is an NGO that was looking at gold, basically, that is as a conflict mineral. And we tried to come up with alternative solutions for people in gold mining that are basically stuck in a very, like in a terrible situation, which is, you can call it modern slavery, really. People are destroying their immediate environment, basically their own environment, their own lives, while using toxic chemicals, right. and basically digging into the ground without any, gear that's needed, really. Yes. And then also they wouldn't earn a lot of money, obviously. The large amount of money would be earned in Switzerland or wherever the gold went to be refined then. So
was there was this transition phase between the two?
I did both at the same time. Okay. Still tour managing and doing working at Earthbeat.
And was there a moment or a person or an idea that just made it feel like it was time to make that transition? Or was there somebody helping you along? Were you just walking along the street and that was just like, let's make that shift?
So the moment I don't exactly remember, but I know that there was a sort of a, okay, sounds esoterical, but there was a sort of a calling or something. Like I was feeling, okay, it's time to do something that I feel is more, is purposeful for me, let's say. I don't want to say that music isn't purposeful. That's really not what I was going to say. But for me, more fulfilling. And so I was like, okay, I want to find something, but how do I do that? And then I sort of asked the universe, okay, what am I gonna do? And then it answered in a really interesting way. I was at this event or a talk about Greenberg therapy, which is all about integrating your body in decisions or in your life, basically. Like, it just don't disregard it. Like, feel it, live your wholeness instead of just trying to figure out things with your mind, which I obviously, as a philosopher, did all the time, most of the time. So this Greenberg thing was like a really interesting thing. And then there was a talk, and in this talk, it was about control and the question of, should I take control or act out control, or should I let go of it? And while we were posing this question as like the audience and the person that gave the speech, basically, there were a couple of people that then later, because I was uttering a couple of things that I was asking myself, right, this question. And then later on, people came to me and told me, hey, I have an idea for you. You can do this and that and that. And there were like several people with several really valid ideas. And I was like, wow, this is easy. And I called up the person that I was recommended to be calling, that is the founder of the Earthbeat Foundation. And I also did figure out the other thing, but that wasn't really so interesting. And then I met her, Guya, the founder, who's like a really inspiring person and somebody that is just, she is so much following her heart and her passion and what she thinks is right. So I was like really attracted to that. Wow, there is somebody that just does things and is not afraid.
Beautiful, and it's beautiful also to look across this timeline. That theme keeps arising. You know, living through your heart and acting through your heart, and so then you come into contact with her, and she's another living embodiment of that. And so what was your relationship like as you were working together, or as you were?
No, we were I guess from the very first moment we were friends, really. I was always having a hard time to say that's my boss, because it's like we were really eye to eye in the way that we worked together, and so that was really also great and a great opportunity for me to learn, because I could really try out things as well and see how it would work. And so I acquired a lot of project management skills through that. I mean, obviously also that started with tour management, but it's obviously a different thing to organize alternative business solutions in Uganda than touring around Europe with the band. But that was great. I just basically jumped into it, and I got all this confidence from her. She was like, "You're gonna do it," and I was like, "Okay, if you say so, there might be something that's true about it." Wow. And that was also a time where I started to, with growing confidence, I realized that if you're still doubting yourself, because that's just what we do as human beings, I guess, or I do all the time still, even though I think I do great things and I can do great things, I'm not sure if I'm good or whatever. And then I decided to listen more to other people, to really not think of myself as the expert of my own life. I'm not, I guess, because most of the time other people are more right about things. When I'm afraid of something that's coming up, I talk to people that I trust, and then if they tell me that I'm going to be able to do it, then I'm like, okay, if you say so.
Wow, beautiful.
That is really cool. It's a good way, a good trick to trick yourself into loving yourself more or believing more in yourself.
And so, yeah, I think that I think that that's a beautiful little run. We covered quite a bit of ground, and there's so much more to talk about, I'm sure. And I'd love to do a part 2 again sometime.
Yeah.
But for me, what stands out is seeing you in the garden as a kid, and and then as a teenager in your room, with this action from the heart, or this living a practical philosophy as well. It's an ethical, a good life, a just life. And so that's been very valuable for me. And what do you think? What do you think's in the future for you? Is always the most random question, really. But where do you think that this? Where do you think life will lead? Where do you think it will lead you? Where do you?
Well, one thing that I can say that has to do with you is that I'm gonna continue to do meditation, which I learned from you. This guy.
This isn't a plug.
This guy. You gotta check him out.
Do this one.
No, but this is something that I really appreciate now, sort of recently. I mean, I started to meditate, I guess, a year ago or 1.5 years ago, but not in a very straight way. It just started out trying out this app and that, and it didn't really work for me. And then when we did the course, I started to do it more frequently, and it really changed something in, I don't know, in many ways. It started to give me more patience, for example, which has always been an issue for me, to be like, I need this right now. And if I can relax more into the situation that I'm in, I also feel my limits better in a way. I don't try to do too much, or I'm more careful, I guess, with myself or with my energy, and try to also be the same with other people. So.
And taking some your emotions seriously, as you promised to yourself as a kid as well, I guess, as a teenager. Because it can be very easy when you're working for the world in the way that you do, in the areas that you do. It can be very we can self-sacrifice to a point of absolute exhaustion. Yeah,
that's I guess the main problem, or the main issue that you should be aware of if you're going into that direction of, in whatever way, trying to do good in the world. Exactly as you say. So the well-being aspect is always, it's needed to be looking at. I also when I was studying, that was also one of the things that I was looking at, Selbstsorge. So that's self-care, as a really important way to be able to do things, to change anything. You just have to start with yourself, and that is one of the main drivers now too. Yeah, because who are you going to serve when you're burned out and you have this career? So try to not do that.
Amazing. I think that we had a good old interview.
Yeah, good old interview.
Yeah. And so here we are from the Co-Creation Loft. Is there anything else that we need to do to sign out? Is there anything that you would like to tell, maybe?
Love your mom.
Yes, we didn't get on to mom and dad, but we will next time. That's my fault.
Love your mom and all my friends and family. No, it's no, I mean, we don't know.
Is there anything that, I think you've already kind of spoken to that younger version of you, maybe, and just.
You know what we should do? We need to dance a little bit.
Just like a little dance.